Black the Name by D.B. Halpert. Narrated by the author, D.B. Halpert. Chapter 21. Approval. The day passes slowly for Elizabeth, who quickly grows bored of the menial tasks Alfredo presents her with throughout the day. Pearl's return in the evening fills Elizabeth with excitement, wanting anything to break the monotony. To both her and Pearl's surprise, Alfredo pulls a small pouch of silver coins out when Pearl enters the store, and handing it to Elizabeth, he asks, "Could you two go get us some food? My meal replacement is fine, but even I get tired of its taste from time to time." Swiping the coins so quickly that Elizabeth didn't even see her approach, Pearl responds, flipping over the counter back to the door. "Certainly. Come on, Lizzie. I want to tell you about this craziness that happened during the installation today. And you can tell me about the wacky things going on at Alfredo's." Well, to start off, the dum-dums let... Following Pearl out, Elizabeth steps into the evening streets, asking Pearl, "Wait, what happened during the installation?" "Well, to start off, the dum-dums let the bell roll off the boat onto the docks. The thing broke right there. Right through, and we had to spend an hour fishing it back up. Only when we got it back on the boat, there was a massive crack in it, on its top. Lucky for them, Aldrin is so intelligent. Using some of his black powder, some of their cement paste, and his wrist torch, he welded the crack closed. So we solved that problem for them, and that was before we set out. After that, we sailed out just far enough for the docks to barely on the horizon. At that point, we dropped anchor, and were told with two other guys that we needed to load into the diving bell. At that point, they pushed us off the boat and directed us to use the foundation they already put in place to pull and lock the bell into place. At the same time, we were installing a buoy for the hand-cranked air pump to be attached to. I am not quite used to the ability to easily see and breathe underwater yet, so I don't know how deep we went. I could easily have touched the sea floor, though, and the strange stuff that was down there. But the fun part was I forgot that it is shark season, and they didn't say anything to us. So the two plebs that were with us began freaking out when they saw a school of tiger sharks pass under their feet. We could have been fine. The sharks would have just left us alone if the idiot Craig didn't cut himself on a bit of the guiding wire. The dummy bloodied the water. And great gods, does bloodied water smell amazing when you breathe underwater? Did I mention I think I might be part shark? Because of that, though, Aldrin and I got the pleasure of fighting hungry sharks. Do you know Aldrin has a device that allows him to breathe for more than an hour underwater? I mean, it isn't as cool as my ability to just always breathe underwater, but I mean, it is pretty cool he can do that without any magic. Anyways, after the school began to frenzy, Aldrin and I went at it with them, right? Turns out Aldrin's rifle doesn't work underwater. Go figure. So he used a sword that I didn't even know he had. He killed 3 of them or so, and I got another 2, but the strangest thing happened. While I was down there, I suddenly felt my stomach rumble, like I was hungry, and my vision went red. I don't remember what happened next, but when my vision cleared, the last shark I was dealing with had a chunk missing from it. Aldrin didn't see what happened, so he couldn't explain to me what I did, and my teeth have been hurting ever since. But I Do you think that red out could have been anything to do with the potion Alfredo gave me? I mean, he did say something about hormones. With a laugh, Elizabeth pats Pearl's back, saying, No, I don't think that was the potion. When Alfredo mentioned hormones, he was talking about the potion I drank. You did say you think you might be part shark. Maybe that was your shark-like instincts kicking in, and the pain in your teeth is because your shark teeth are growing in. Elizabeth finishes with wiggling her fingers in front of her face at Pearl. Looking uncomfortable, Pearl gives a nervous chuckle before changing the subject again. So, what have you been doing at the shop? Being bored. Alfredo won't let me do anything. Just sweep the floor, wash the empty vials, test tubes, pitchers, flasks, and jars, and help with the counter transactions, giving people their prescriptions. I did have time to look through the note journal next to the storage satchel that holds the other test elixirs. Really? Well, don't hold out on me. Would like to have some time to think before tomorrow. I didn't intend to, silly. Now, what did that book say? Well, as a note, this isn't his first batch of test elixirs, though the other batches were disposed of after going inert. The first one on the list was, oh yeah, a potion that induces hair and nail growth. There was one that is supposed to be a new formula for a size reduction potion, one that is supposed to be a cure for hiccups, one that is supposed to improve the imbiber's memory, one that causes hallucinations, one that is supposed to help the imbiber open their third eye, another eye based on that is supposed to induce permanent bioluminescence in the eyes of the imbiber. Purple stops Elizabeth before she continues, saying, Wow, that is a lot. The eye glowy one sounds interesting. Weren't you going to take your time deciding? Okay. How about this? After the glowing eyes, you choose for me. That is, of course, if we test any more of these potions. I trust you. Oh, okay. The two girls purchase seared pork and vegetables and return to Alfredo over the course of their conversation. And joining him inside his shop, the three enjoy the dinner and break for bed. Morning comes again, with Pearl poking Elizabeth to wake her, saying, Lizzie, I forgot to mention yesterday that we have a shipping out date. 2 more days. Hey, wake up. Let's go see if your clothes are ready. Pulling the sheets over herself, Elizabeth moans softly in response. Aren't I supposed to be the energetic one? Well, you aren't being it, so I took over the responsibility. Come on. Boop probably needs to stretch his eye stalks. Anyways. Fine, let me get dressed. The two break the seal of Alfredo's front door before the sun is even up, and for the first time since they got to the city, Pearl and Elizabeth experience the streets quiet, empty. When the two reach the tailor's store, they are not too surprised to find it not open yet, as the sun only barely creeps over the horizon. The sun is fully in the sky by the time the tailor switches the sign to say open, gesturing with a smile for Elizabeth and Pearl to join him inside. After a short exchange, Pearl and Elizabeth reemerge from the shop back into the streets in her new tailored outfit. Elizabeth gives a twirl as she steps into the morning sun to show it off for Pearl to get a good look. Tightly form-fitting to Elizabeth's supple curves, the outfit is a cute multi-part collection of pieces that layer flowing, loose garments over slim-fitting pieces that perfectly hold the contours of Elizabeth's frame. A short gray flat skirt flows from Elizabeth's hips, loosely tossing with her twirl over a tight pair of rich blue leggings, stitched in a crossing pattern down their sides with a quarter-inch strand of pink leather. The waistline is a loose skirt, sits tucked neatly under a stiff but comfortable purple and green corset shirt hybrid, with which holds its shape to Elizabeth's torso in an uplifting, perky posture. Though Elizabeth's torso holds its posture on its own, the top seemingly enhances the curves that are present. A loose jacket, the same color of the leggings, drapes over Elizabeth's shoulders, held in the front by a single button that sits at just the top of Elizabeth's sternum, and the loose bottom of the jacket hangs gently halfway down to Elizabeth's waist, displaying the vast difference in the breadth of Elizabeth's upper torso and her waistline, with more than an inch of space between her stomach and the sides of the jacket, and the jacket's free lower edge. The light purple ribbon is tied over the forest green center column of the top, framed by purple on Elizabeth's sides. Applauding the twirl, Pearl says to Elizabeth, "You look even prettier in that ensemble. Now we can go let you show off to the guys." "Yeah, I can't wait to see Aldrin's face." The two take to stride in the street, to the dock, and to the Salty Sea Hag, all the way catching the eyes of people that they pass. Stepping into the tavern, Elizabeth quickly has the attention of all of the men who spend their time not working, drowning themselves in alcohol. But stepping with Pearl to the counter, neither of the women see either of their companions in the tavern. Approaching the barkeep, Pearl asks, "Hey, Gretchen, did you happen to see the men I've been traveling with leave here this morning?" Turning to Pearl, Gretchen responds, "Yeah, both of them came down, had breakfast, and left together." You have no clue where they were off to, do you?" "No, not. Now, aren't you going to introduce me to your friend? She's certainly gotten the attention of everyone around here." "You already met. That's Elizabeth." "Wait, that's Elizabeth? Little Elizabeth from the other day. Haven't you come into your own? Darling, you look fantastic. So, it was you that was all robed up a couple days back. Why would you feel the need to cover up, dear? You're absolutely gorgeous. Simply blessed by the gods of beauty." Elizabeth blushes with Gretchen's barrage of compliments, wanting to find Aldrin and Auburn for Elizabeth to be able to show off how not a monster she is. Pearl takes her young friend's shoulder and ushers her back towards the door, saying to Gretchen, "Thanks anyways." The entire collection of male patrons in the bar join in Gretchen calling to the woman as they leave, saying, "Farewell, ladies." Several hours of walking around the city come to no avail, with Pearl and Elizabeth not catching a glimpse of either Aldrin or Auburn. The two find their way back to the Salty Sea Hag as the sky begins to turn orange with the evening sun. Stepping through the door, they are greeted by the crowd exclaiming at their return, "Welcome back, pretty ladies!" Immediately, the crowd is scolded by Gretchen, calling over her customers, yelling, "Now you lot hush up! Give the girls some space! Peace from your stairs, you pegs!" The tavern patrons grumble, but obey the tavern dictate, becoming quiet. Calling Pearl and Elizabeth to the bar counter, with a wave, Gretchen greets them. "Glad you came back. Your friends returned. They're upstairs in their rooms." Stepping to the stairs, Pearl gives a small salute to the barkeep, saying, "Thanks again, Gretchen." Elizabeth and Pearl step up the stairs to the door of Auburn's room. With a gesture to the door, Pearl steps out of the way for Elizabeth to present herself to the man who has been calling her a monster. With a quick flick of the wrist, Elizabeth knocks knuckles against the hard wood of the door, and she calls out into the room beyond. Auburn, I have a question for you. From inside the room, Auburn's voice calls out, What do you want? Come to the door. I need to show you something before I can ask my question. What are you? Fine. Auburn's voice growls back, and after a few seconds, his door swings open. The thick odor of alcohol wafts from the room, while he crosses his arms before leaning to prop himself up on the doorframe. Auburn is clearly intoxicated, asking, Say, what do you want to show me, and what's the question? Look, Elizabeth exclaims, giving a twirl. What's your question? Leaning against close to Auburn, bringing her fist together under her chin, and batting her large, youthful, joy-filled eyes, Elizabeth asks, Do you still think I'm a monster now? Stricken a sudden sobriety, Auburn looks dead into Elizabeth's hopeful eyes, and with a cold sternness ushers, Yes. The single word stuns Elizabeth, who slowly begins to let her arms drop to her sides, whimpering in shock. What? Auburn's expression remains steely as he elaborates. You're a monster. There is no question about it. You willfully use dark magic for a kin. You could be using magic to disguise your appearance, no? It's not magic, see? Well, grabbing Auburn's hand, Elizabeth presses it against her chest, saying, That alchemist, Alfredo! I tested a potion for him that helped my body develop. I'm beautiful now. I can't be a monster. Pulling his hand away, Auburn squints at Elizabeth, saying, Potion can't change with you. You can never be more made beautiful that way. Confusion, self-doubt, and anger widen Elizabeth's eyes as she balls her fist at her side. The anger to Auburn builds as he speaks, boiling over as he finishes. And unleashing in a yell at him, Elizabeth exclaims, You're just a jerk! I'll prove you wrong! With her outburst, Elizabeth turns from Auburn and storms from the room. Aldrin's door opens as Elizabeth steps past it, and turning to look down the hall, Auburn and Pearl simply moans, Really, guys? Snapping out of the stupor of shock at seeing the exchange between Auburn and Elizabeth, Pearl's eyes send a piercing gaze at the swaying Auburn as she asks, Now why did you have to go and say those things? Before she chases after Elizabeth, calling, Lizzie, wait! Grumbling to herself, Elizabeth makes her way back to Alfredo and his shop. Throwing the door open, the young Elizabeth steps past the counter and to Alfredo, saying, Mr. Alfredo, it's been 3 days. Would you like to have me test another one of those experiments for you? Standing and stepping to the satchel that stores the experimental elixirs, Alfredo asks, Sure. If I wouldn't be too prying, you seem upset. What's wrong? This guy I've been traveling with called me a monster again. Pulling the test tubes out of the perpetually cold container, Alfredo comforts Elizabeth, saying, Not everyone will see the good in you. I mean, how do you think the other alchemists and apothecary in the city felt when I drove them out of business, making common cures more affordable for the average Iralfamarian? You can't let people who won't be willing to see what is perfect about you stop you from doing what you know is right for you to do. Yeah, but I'll show him. I'll prove him wrong. I can make him see that I'm not a monster. Now wait a second. I don't think you are understanding what I'm telling you. What do you mean? The other alchemist and apothecary knew you were lowering your costs so that more people would have better access to the medicines they needed. They could have done the same, thus agreeing with you that it was the right thing to do. But instead, they refused to accept you as a good humanitarian, and they were driven out of business because of it, giving them no choice but to admit that your way was better than their way.
That actually makes sense.
I will prove to him that he has no choice but to see me as not a monster. I have to become as beautiful as I can, so that Archangel's presence in me will touch his stony heart.
Well, good luck then. What effect would you want from my experimental potions?
Oh, don't worry. I read the list. The induction of enlightenment, third eye elixir, needs to be tested. And if I reach enlightenment, perhaps I'll understand a way to get Auburn to stop thinking of me as a monster.
Reaching out, Elizabeth takes the test tube that matches the description from Alfredo's notes. A creamy sky blue liquid fills it with a ribbon of another substance suspended within it, in constant rotation, forming an eye-like appearance. Swallowing the syrup, Elizabeth makes mental note of the weird iron taste. At the same time, Elizabeth wipes her mouth with the back of her hand. She is reminded of her sharpened teeth and elongated canines, accidentally cutting her hand on her tooth. And just then, Pearl enters the shop. Swiping another test tube, Elizabeth takes it to Pearl, presenting it with a smile, saying,
"One ocular bioluminescence formulation, as requested."
Pearl, surprised by the sudden change in Elizabeth's emotional expression, takes the test tube and examines the content. A multi-tone green concoction sits in 3 distinct layers with a gleaming self-illuminating sediment that drifts between the layers that mix temporarily when the container is shaken. With a shrug, Pearl tips the test tube back, letting the contents rush down her throat. Then, with both Pearl and Elizabeth having a test tube of his meal replacement, Alfredo ushers the women into his guest room for the night.